Hey 49ers fans, I'm Thomas Mott, and today a very special treat for you as I have our very first full 7-round 49ers mock draft. We're going to go pick by pick. The 49ers have 6 total picks this year, and I'm going to break down what I would do if I was drafting for the San Francisco 49ers. Of course, using the draftnetwork.com, so all the picks that are not the 49ers are all automated, so whatever's left on the board when it's the Niners' turn to pick, that is who I am going to take. Now remember, 49ers have 6 total picks. They have 1 in the first, another in the second. They have 1 third-round pick, 1 fourth-round pick, and then 2 sixth-round picks. So no 5th and no 7th this year. And of course, this is all pre-free agency, so could change, based on the 49ers' needs and what they do in free agency. But as of right now, as of today, let's jump right into this mock draft. And starting with the number 2 overall pick, let's show you our best 5 available, or 5 available that are of note, and then I will show you who I would select. Now, number 2 overall, basically everyone's still available. In the mock draft I did, the Cardinals took Nick Bosa. Now remember, odds are, I would bet, in reality, the Cardinals are going to take Kyler Murray, which means Nick Bosa will be available. I would take Nick Bosa if he's there at 2. If he's not, then I am going to take the best player available, and I think you're going to be kind of curious about who that's going to be. Right now, again, Ed Oliver's on the board. The edge rusher Josh Allen from Kentucky's on the board. Greedy Williams, the cornerback. Jonah Williams from Alabama. Brian Burns, Montez Sweat, right? Everybody's there. So if I'm going to pick somebody at number 2, I'm going to take the defensive tackle from Alabama, Quinnen Williams. Now, I know what you're saying. We need edge rushers for the 49ers. I know. But when you have a talent like Quinnen Williams, when you have a guy 6'3", 303 pounds, and still ran a 4.87 at the combine, and then you just put on the game film of this guy, and he dominates on the inside. This is a once-in-a-draft kind of player. We're talking like a Fletcher Cox on the inside. Even Aaron Donald-like dominance is how good this guy can technically be. So when you're sitting at number 2, I think you have to go with the best available guy, and for me, I'm going to take, like I said, Alabama's Quinnen Williams to be the number 2 overall pick in the 2019 draft by the San Francisco 49ers. Moving right along to our 2nd round pick. Now, this was kind of an odd pick to do because, again, it's a fully simulated draft, so some of the picks are a little bit odd what other teams take. So here are the guys that were actually on the board at number 2, pick 36 for the 49ers. The one that jumps out to me, obviously, the linebacker Devin Bush out of Michigan. Also including David Montgomery, the running back from Iowa State, A.J. Brown, the wide receiver from Mississippi, Garrett Bradbury, the guard from NC State, and Julian Love, the cornerback from Notre Dame, were all available when it was my turn to pick at number 36 overall. Now, obviously, if Devin Bush from Michigan is there at 36, and I'm the San Francisco 49ers, I am running my pick straight to Roger Goodell. Like, you would have to take him immediately. The reason I did not take him was because I believe there is a 0.0% chance he's actually there at 36. And I know it's a mock draft, but I wanted to make it as true as possible. Devin Bush is going to be a first-round draft pick for sure, probably a top 15 draft pick. He's arguably the best linebacker in this draft. He's not going to be there, so I didn't want to kind of cheat the system and take a guy who has 0 chance of being a 49er in the 2nd round. So I went with, here it is, Marquise Brown. Hollywood Brown, the wide receiver from Oklahoma. This one was a no-brainer. We know the 49ers need wide receiver help. Now, if they don't go out and get Antonio Brown or Odell Beckham or whoever else that you need to add in free agency, then they're going to address wide receiver in the draft. It's a very good draft for wide receivers, and Hollywood Brown, when healthy, is probably arguably one of the top 3 or 4 receivers in this draft. He's related to Antonio Brown. He has a lot of the similar characteristics of Antonio Brown. This guy is fast, he's shifty, and is a burner, but he's not just like a straight line burner. He's not just Deshaun Jackson. He can also run routes as well. To me, if he's there in the 2nd round, it's going to have the 49ers have a hard time passing up on Hollywood Brown at number 2. Let's move right along. The 3rd round draft pick. This is pick number 67. Take a look at the guys who are still available on the board. The running back Damian Harris out of Alabama. Emmanuel Hall, a good wide receiver out of FAU. Jojuan Williams is a cornerback out of Vandy. I thought about him a lot here. Then you throw in a guy like Darnell Savage with a safety out of Maryland, and Jace Sternberger, the tight end out of Texas A&M. The third round is when it starts to get interesting, right? Because now I got to do my homework and figure out who are these guys that maybe some of you haven't heard about, who are third, fourth, or fifth best at their position, who can help the San Francisco 49ers kind of right away because it's still a third-round draft pick. I went with defensive back. This time I went with the safety out of Washington, Taylor Rapp, 212 pounds, 6 foot. Listen, this guy's a sure tackler. This guy is, in all the sense, your prototypical strong safety. He has the size, he has the strength, and he has the tackling abilities. He can also cover the slot, which is important for your safety to be able to do. Think kind of like Malcolm Jenkins here. He's not that good at ball skills. You know, he's not going to intercept a lot of passes, but he can go and cover the slot, and he can get up in the box, fill holes, and hit you and get you to the ground. And I really, really like Taylor Rapp, especially in the third round at number 67 overall. He can handle guys like the tight end in the slot. He can also handle slot receivers as well. He's shifty enough and yet big enough to be able to handle the bigger tight ends. Again, if Earl Thomas is still available in free agency, or if the 49ers go out and get Earl Thomas or Landon Collins in free agency, then there's no need to go for Rapp here in the third round. You can maybe get a cornerback here instead, but we're going under the assumption that they don't get anybody, or that they didn't get a safety in free agency, and so we're going to go ahead and address that here with Taylor Rapp out of Washington in the third round. Moving on to the fourth round. Throw them up. Here's who's available. Devin Singletary, the running back out of FAU. Jacoby Myers, the wide receiver out of NC State. Terry Godwin, he's a good slot receiver out of Georgia. Titus Howard, there's your offensive tackle still available. Looked at him a little bit. And then Chris Boyd, the cornerback out of Texas. I've seen Chris Boyd in person, and I know the Niner fans are going to want to see a cornerback, but Chris Boyd, to me, is not the answer in the fourth round. He gets lost in coverage too much, doesn't turn his head, and turns out to be really kind of a pass interference machine. Not very good technique. Overall, not worth a fourth-round draft pick. So no cornerback here, but I'm still going to address a defensive need, and that is inside linebacker. Reuben Foster, of course, gone to Washington. So I went with Bobby Okoreke with the fourth pick, number 104 overall, the linebacker out of Stanford. 6'2", 234 pounds, very explosive and good lateral speed. Side to side, sideline to sideline, he can make the runs to get on the outside of tackles, or of offensive tackles, that is, and get around blockers and make open field tackles. He's good in run support as well, and can also cover a decent amount. He struggles with tackling overall. One-on-one, he's not the best, but he can still get to the running back. He still has the speed to get there, and then just work on wrapping up and bringing down. So I like Okoreke here in the fourth round. To me, he was the best inside linebacker available, and that is who, that is who I am going to go with at 104 overall. Now remember, the 49ers do not have a pick in the fifth round. They don't have a pick in the seventh round. They have 2 picks in the sixth round, and this is where it gets, for me and even for you, a little bit harder to decide, because these are guys that you and I basically have probably never heard of. So you got to really do your research here, and you're looking for value. You're looking for someone who you can grow in 2 or 3 years and have, some starter potential, but not actually starting really anytime soon. So the first pick in the sixth round, 176 overall. Here's who's still available during my draft here. Justice Hill, the running back out of Oklahoma State. Paris Campbell, the wide receiver out of Ohio State. Chris Slayton, the D lineman from Syracuse. Lil Jordan Humphrey, the wide receiver from Texas. And Lonnie Johnson Jr., the cornerback out of Kentucky. Now again, in these mock drafts, in these draft simulators, some guys aren't picked where they will probably be picked. Like Kyler Murray was still available in the third round, so obviously you see there's some mistakes there. Justice Hill will not be available in the sixth round. Someone's going to take him a lot earlier than that. Same with Paris Campbell. He's a very good wide receiver, the best wide receiver coming out of Ohio State. He won't be there as well. Lil Jordan Humphrey, he probably will be, and so we're going to hold off on him and actually go with an offensive lineman. I went with Tyree St. Louis out of Miami. I went for the best offensive lineman that was still available on the board. Listen, looked up his stuff, looked up his stats. He was on my big board whenever I was deciding to go for this draft. 6'5", 305. And listen, here are the good attributes for St. Louis. He's strong. He's also smart and able to pick up blitzes, different stunts and extra rushers coming up the middle. He's very good at just recognizing who's coming and who's not. He's not a finished product though. He struggles in pass protection, basically in one-on-ones. If you have a better, more dominant edge rusher who can bend better and get around you, he's a little bit slower in that area. And then also, he's not a surefire run blocker as well. Again, that's why he's a 6th round pick, but you could bring him in and he could learn behind the 2 really good tackles the 49ers already have. So again, 6th round draft pick. We're not expecting him to start in 2019, but you can throw him into the mix and let him kind of compete for a backup role, and then hopefully in the future could become a starter with a lot of value. So here we go. Final pick in the draft for the 49ers, because again, no 7th round pick. This is pick 6, well, 6th round, 212 overall. The last one the Niners are going to get, here's who's still available. Myles Gaskin, the running back out of Washington. Jalen Hurd, you might have heard of him. He's the running back converted to wide receiver out of Baylor. He's probably going to be undrafted, but he's a really good option maybe for someone to sneak in late 7th round and pick up a guy who had a ton of success at Tennessee, then decided to transfer, wanted to play wide receiver at Baylor, had a couple of injuries, but still has the size and the abilities to play wide receiver at the next level. But I think you could probably get him in either undrafted or get him in the 7th round, so I would hold off on Jalen Hurd. Bryce Love, the wide receiver out of Stanford. Jarrett Stidham, the quarterback out of Auburn. Don't need him, he's still there. And Brian Cowart, the defensive end out of Maryland, also still there. But I'm going to grab another wide receiver, because I think you could never have enough wide receivers. And again, they might address this in free agency, so there's might not be need to draft a second wide receiver after we took Hollywood Brown, 36 overall. But if he's there at 212, I'm going to take Lil Jordan Humphrey, the wide receiver out of Texas. Listen, 6'4", 220 pounds. This guy is your typical go up and get a pass kind of receiver. He has a ton of range and can go and make those tough catches in traffic. He struggles with speed, and that's where he's going to be slowed back and not taken as high in the draft. He can't really create a lot of separation, but doesn't really need that when he can go up, high point the ball, and make catches in traffic. So this, to me, would be a great pick for the San Francisco 49ers to be able to get later in the draft. It's a guy who you don't have to spend a high pick on, but could still come in and really be a good 3rd string or 4th string wide receiver. And who knows? He has the size and speed, the size and talent. He's not done the speed, the size, and really playmaking abilities to possibly be good at the next level. But again, any pick after the 5th round, you're basically putting on a blindfold and throwing a dart at the board, because again, you can say this guy's got this good stuff, but he also is bad in these areas. Could be good, could not. It's always tough to make picks in the later rounds. Who knows? Maybe I just found the next great receiver at 212 overall. I guess history will be the judge of that. So let's go ahead and recap. My 6 picks: Quinnen Williams in the 1st round, Hollywood Brown in the 2nd round, Taylor Rapp in the 3rd round, again, the Stanford linebacker in the 4th round, Bobby Okoreke, I wrote it down, it's hard to pronounce, and then Tyree St. Louis, the offensive tackle, and then Lil Jordan Humphrey also picked in the 6th round. So there are my 6 picks. That is who I was able to draft in this mock draft simulation. Again, does not take into account free agency and does not take into account any sort of pre-draft or draft night trades. I know you guys are going to give me a lot of flack for Quinnen Williams, and I understand that, but remember, the 49ers could very easily trade out of that area, move back into the top 10, like 8, 9, 10, or even like 12, 13, 14, and get someone like a Greedy Williams, or get someone like a Devin Bush, or get someone like an edge rusher like a Montez Sweat. These are all people they could trade back and grab, but if they're going to sit at number 2 overall, and Bosa's already off the board, then I'm going with the best player, arguably the best player in this draft, in Quinnen Williams. So again, I want to hear your guys' thoughts on this, because this is where it's going to get interesting. A lot of people are going to rip me and say, why don't you take him over him? I'll read the comments. I'm very curious. But what I want you guys to do is try out a mock draft for yourself. Again, all you got to go to is thedraftnetwork.com, pick the 49ers, and then you can literally go through an entire simulated draft, and you'll see just what it's like to be able to sit there and wait for people to hopefully fall, or have your guy who you wanted to draft picked right in front of you. It's not easy to do. It gives you a little bit of respect for what the GMs and front offices have to do. But again, you guys get to decide. Grade this draft for the 49ers. A, B, C, D, or F. Type that down below. Again, you can do a B+ or a B-. To me, this is not a bad draft. I really wish I could have gotten a good cornerback. That would be my only real swap if I could do it over again is try and find a cornerback maybe a little bit earlier on. But again, I think if the Niners trade out of the second overall pick, then you might pick up another second later on, which you could use to get a cornerback. So I wish I could have gotten a cornerback, but again, I think I did a pretty good job and got some good playmakers and also some good defensive players who could have potentially a lot of impact for the 49ers in the future. Again, for everything 49ers related, I'm Thomas Mott on Chat Sports. I hope you enjoyed this mock draft. Enjoy the rest of your day.